G'day, welcome to the Snowies. In this journey I'm having a look at what is basically an alpine crossing from the Seamans hut to Albina Pass. I'm going to be following the remnants of an old road that crosses the valley of Rawson Creek. The beginning of the route is to the left of and behind the hut. Begins as a minor footpad. And here we see into the Rawson Creek Valley with Albina Pass beyond. And in the foreground there is a set of wheel ruts. That's the route. I'm fairly sure this route was created in the early 1900s when a shelter hut was built at Albina Pass. Later on it would have been used in the building of the Albina hut and then for a soil conservation project undertaken in the 1960s. It's mainly used nowadays by campers accessing the valley floor. As you can see, the initial part of this route isn't very substantial, but it won't be long before it turns into something more pronounced. Light dusting of snow on the tops. Here we see to the north ridge of Mt Kosciuszko. And now towards Mount Clark. The season is autumn and this is the beginning of the pre-winter snowfalls. This part's a little bit vague. Track cuts off slightly to the right. The route was regenerated over 50 years ago and has become obscure in many places. Pretty soon the track widens out. The line of the route was carefully chosen to avoid the many swamps and bogs in this area. We can see the wheel ruts crossing that ridge ahead. Beds of rock were used to cross the watercourses. Here, looking back to the starting point and Etheridge Bluff. That's the lower Rawson Creek. The creek has its source at Rawson Pass and is seen here heading for the Snowy River. We've even got a glimpse to Kosci. And now the wheel ruts become quite pronounced. And if we look on the other side of the valley there, we can see the wheel ruts climbing to the saddle, which is Albina Pass. Below is one of the drainage humps put in place to regenerate the pathway. The route crosses the creek down this way. There's a bit of an S-bend in the track and the heath's taken over. Zigzags were used here to reduce erosion. We can see why this area is an attractive place for camping. Although it can become windy at this end of the valley. Okay, here's the crossing they used. Guess they would have been driving a jeep back then. The approach is from this angle, but the crossing cuts back upstream. Water levels are at their lowest in autumn and highest in spring. Once again, there's bedrock in the creek here. The ruts get vague in this section. We pretty much just walk along the only sections that they could have driven on. The river flats are surrounded by swamps, and the route stays with the driest ground. As I said, yeah, it meanders a bit here. But over there we can see the ruts climbing the slope, and we'll join up with the lower section. As we can see, the route is barely visible. Up ahead, the route weaves through these moraine humps. The moraine section reaches almost to the bottom of the slope. And beyond the top of this moraine hump, the way gets a bit vague, but I'm basically going to step into that creek there and follow the left branch. This must have been a tricky part to get the jeep through. Following this section of the route in fog would be extremely difficult. Just up ahead we turn hard right towards the slopes of Muellers Peak. Then it swings back around to the right, and we're aiming for the bottom of the slope then. And up there's the pass. But there's still one more tricky part. And in this section, we cross to the left over there. There was no visible connection between these two parts of the route. And that puts us in line for the bottom of the slope. From here, the track becomes less vague and the terrain easier to manage. And there we can see back to the Seamans hut. Okay, here's the slope, and it's all very straightforward now. The slope is quite steep. Here's the final creek crossing. The slope on the right is the striking moraine feature visible from Albina Pass. Albina Pass was once named Moraine Pass because of it. The gap up to the right between Mount Northcote and Mount Clark is now named Moraine Pass. Oh, it's a big one. And eventually we reach the main range track. But this route continues on a little further. And here's the site of an old remnant hut. This is likely the site of a shelter hut that existed in the early 1900s. And from the other side of the pass, of course, we see to Lake Albina. This is the other end of the route. The road leads down there to the site of the Albina hut on the lower right. go, crossing of the Rawson Creek Valley. Excellent stuff. And that route is best used in fine conditions, I'd say. Wouldn't be much fun in a fog. So look, I'll sign out here. Adios.